as my husband said this morning, I guess it's a one-woman show tonight, because I'm going to share with you guys a little bit that's been on my heart. And that song is my life song. I mean, that is just, God has been so good to me from the beginning all the way through. And so I'm just going to share with you guys a little bit. I'm not going to use let me use this mic here. I don't do well speaking in public, guys. I've just now gotten to the point where I can sing and not be an absolute nervous wreck every time I have to sing by myself. But speaking, I'm not quite there yet, so y'all just bear with me because I'm very, very nervous. But to understand where I'm coming from with the words I share tonight, I want to share a little bit about me. So my parents were married in December of 1974. I was born in October the following year. So all the little old ladies at their church were like counting on their fingers. She pregnant? She got married? I grew up in church, got saved at VBS one year, always believed in Jesus. I just not always walked it out. When I was in kindergarten, we were at my grandmother's house. All you grandmas and grandpas, you know how it is. You spoil your grandkids like crazy. My granny was the same way. She gave me these popsicle sticks. Told me I could have them. My mom said, nope, you are not taking that mess to my house. It is staying here. Well, I was like, you know what? I'm going to take them anyway. So I snuck them out to the car. Well, I ended up shutting my finger in the car door. Chopped the top of it off. Had to go get stitches. My mom was freaking out. But I remember being extremely calm, and I told her, Mom, it's okay. Jesus is watching over me. So in kindergarten, at the age of 5 years old, well, 6, because I was a year late starting, I knew that Jesus was going to watch over me and that Jesus had me in his arms. 1 Peter 5:7. Baby, you want to go flip over there? Okay. Well, I'll just read it. 1 Peter 5:7 says, cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. As a young child, I believed that. Well, fast forward to my teenage years, I was still going to church, but I was not living a Christ-centered life. You see, my dad was gone all the time. My mom worked full-time, and I took care of my 2 younger brothers, and I just felt like something was missing. So I was looking for love in all the wrong places, as the song goes. I was looking for something to fill the hole in my life with what the world told me I needed, but what I really needed was a deeper relationship with Christ. But God. Jeremiah 29:11, one of my favorite verses. All of you guys know it, but it says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you a hope and a future. But then 12 says, then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me when you seek me with all your heart. I will be found by you, declares the Lord, and will bring you back from captivity. Then came my senior year. My dad was still working out of town a lot, and he was working at the time for Dean's dad. Well, I guess my dad was worried about me because he told Dean, hey, my daughter's not dating anyone. You should ask her out. Dean, stand-up guy that he is, said, you got a picture? My dad showed a picture of me dressed up in my drum major uniform, not a flattering picture at all. And then he called and asked me out. That was April the 8th of 1994. We got married October the 8th of 1994. And contrary to popular belief in my hometown, it's not because I was pregnant. Guy actually went up to my mom in the hardware store and said, hey, what does Tina have, a boy or a girl? And my mom was like, what are you talking about? He was like, well, she got married really quick. Why did she must have been pregnant. And my mom was like, no, they got married because they wanted to, not because they had to. And he was like, well, I just assumed that they had to get married. And my mom was like, yeah, no, not the case. But what I didn't know until later on, much later on, is that Dean had asked God to give him a family. At the time, I was 18. He was 24. He'd been in the Navy, circumnavigated the planet, as he likes to say, tied it up. And here's my dad saying, hey, do you want to date my 18-year-old daughter? Okay, kind of a little fishy right there to get, but God. He had just been discharged from the Navy, and while he was on the carrier, before he was discharged, it broke down, and the nuclear reactor started to melt down in the middle of the ocean. It was then that he prayed to God and said, I want a family, I want a wife and kids. Well, he gets home, and then God delivered on that prayer. When Dean and I first got married, we were going to Trinity Baptist Church in Tyler. There were a lot of young adults our age, and we wanted to enjoy being married, enjoy time with them, and not have kids yet. We wanted to wait a little while. But when our friends started getting pregnant, we decided, okay, well, great. We'll have kids. They'll be the same age as theirs. They'll be best friends growing up, which is the case. I mean, it ended up being the case because Patrick has, 5 little friends that he's been friends with since they were in the playpen. I have pictures of them in the playpen together. But anyway, so we started trying. Took us almost a year to get pregnant with Patrick. After we had Patrick, we decided that we wanted our kids to be about 2 years apart. So we started trying again when Patrick was about 6 months old or so. Needless to say, we got pregnant the first month. We tried. God was faithful. 1 John 5, 14 through 15. Actually, we're going to go 13 through 15. It says, I write these things to you who believe in the name of the Son of God, so that you may know that you have eternal life. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to His will, He hears us. And if we know that He hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have asked of Him. And we did a lot of praying in that time for Patrick and for Katie when we became pregnant with them, because we wanted a family. That was one thing that we wanted from the get-go, was a family. And it took us a while to get there, but we prayed for it. God was faithful. He delivered us that family. We have gone through a lot as a family. Dean lost his dad in 2002, then his mom in 2005. In 2002, Dean had his first back surgery, and he got fired from his job, leaving us with 2 small children and no insurance. But we trusted God and His plans for us. Dean ended up going to school and getting his x-ray license, which is the best thing that could have happened. And I missed one. Proverbs 3, 5 through 6. The one that everybody knows. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your path straight. Because I tell you what, we were definitely trusting God, because we could not understand how our family, Dean's aunt owned the company at the time, could have fired him from a job and left his children with no insurance, us with one income, which was not a huge income at that time because it was just me working. But his own family did that to us. And so if we had leaned on our own understanding, we would have been mad. I mean, and it took us a long time to forgive, honestly, because, I mean, that's your family, and they're supposed to take care of you. And here they are looking out for themselves and their bottom line instead of trying to look out for their family and make sure that their family was taken care of. We have seen God's plan for us come to the forefront of our lives as we have made decisions along the way that drew us closer to Him. I mean, including this church. I mean, God was all over the fact that we came to this church. Because Dean and I have been visiting churches all over the place. We went to Westwood Baptist. We went to E.T. And at E.T., most of you guys have heard the story, but it was right before July 4th. And so they were talking about the lunchtime prayer on the courthouse square at July 4th, and Dean and I were like, you know what? We want to do that. We want to get involved. We want to do that. So we went. There was nobody from ET there. It was this church that was there. It was Rodney and Nisbeth. It was Mike and Amanda. I don't remember if you guys, Dean and Sarah, I don't remember if y'all were there or not, but it was this church that showed up and showed out. And Mike and Amanda were like, hey, you guys who haven't seen you guys before, started talking to us, invited us to come to his church. And Dean and I were like, oh yeah, we've driven by that church almost every day. We know where that church is. So we started visiting. And I mean, it didn't take long at all for us to just become a part of this church. God was in that. If we hadn't made the decision that day to go to the courthouse for the prayer, if you guys hadn't been there, who knows what church we would have ended up in this town. I don't know, because we hadn't felt like we fit in anywhere until we met you guys. Even in our heartbreak, God walked with us. We have experienced the goodness of God throughout all of our struggles. Even in our heartbreak, God walked with us and helped us to make it through them. I found out in October of 2017, when I went to have my tubes tied, that I had severe endometriosis. In fact, the doctor told me that it was a miracle that I was able to get pregnant at all with the amount of scar tissue I had, but God had other plans. God gave me 2 beautiful children who are the absolute joy of our hearts most of the time, which is the case with most kids. But God had other plans for us. You know, I mean, He had plans for us to have our family. We talked this morning in Sunday school about having faith and letting our faith be bigger than our fear. It would have been so easy so many times throughout our lives to just give up. But we trusted in God. We had faith that He was going to get us through our struggles. And he has time and time again. And Dean and I are both closer to God now than we have ever been in our lives. And then we're going to go to Hebrews chapter 11, also known as the Faith Hall of Fame. I'm just going to read it first, and then we'll kind of go back and talk about it just a little bit. I told y'all we're going to be short and sweet tonight. I'm going to get y'all out of here before the rain starts. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. This is what the ancients were commended for. By faith, we understand that the universe was formed at God's command, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. By faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. And by faith, Abel still speaks even though he is dead. By faith, Enoch was taken from this life so that he did not experience death. He could not be found because God had taken him away. For before he was taken, he was commended as one who pleased God. And without faith, it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to him must believe that he exists, and that he rewards those who earnestly seek him. By faith, Noah, when warned about things not yet seen, in holy fear, built an ark to save his family. By his faith, he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness that is in keeping with faith. By faith, Abraham, when called to go to a place he would later receive as his inheritance, obeyed and went, even though he did not know where he was going. By faith, he made his home in the promised land. Like a stranger in a foreign country, he lived in tents, as did Isaac and Jacob, who were heirs with him of the same promise. For he was looking forward to the city with foundations, whose architect and builder is God. And by faith, even Sarah, who was past childbearing age, was enabled to bear children, because she considered him faithful who had made the promise. And so from this one man, and he as good as dead, came descendants as numerous as the stars in the sky, and as countless as the sands on the seashore. All these people were still living by faith when they died. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance, admitting that they were foreigners and strangers on earth. People who say such things show that they are looking for a country of their own. If they had been thinking of the country they had left, they would have had opportunity to return. Instead, they were longing for a better country, a heavenly one. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called God, their God, for he has prepared a city for them. By faith, Abraham, when God tested him, offered Isaac as a sacrifice. He who had embraced the promise was about to sacrifice his one and only son, even though God said to him, "It is through Isaac that your offspring will be reckoned." Abraham reasoned that God could even raise the dead, and so in a manner of speaking, he did receive Isaac back from death. By faith, Isaac blessed Jacob and Esau in regard to their future. By faith, Jacob, when he was dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and worshipped as he leaned on the top of his staff. By faith, Joseph, when his end was near, spoke about the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt and gave instructions concerning the burial of his bones. By faith, Moses' parents hid him for 3 months after he was born, because they saw he was no ordinary child, and they were not afraid of the king's edict. By faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God, rather than to enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. He regarded disgrace, for the sake of Christ, as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. By faith, he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. By faith, he kept the Passover and the application of blood, so that the destroyer of the firstborn would not touch the firstborn of Israel. By faith, the people passed through the Red Sea as on dry land, but when the Egyptians tried to do so, they were drowned. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell, after the army had marched around them for 7 days. By faith, the prostitute Rahab, because she welcomed the spies, was not killed with those who were disobedient. And what more shall I say? I do not have time to tell about Gideon, Barak, Samson, and Jephthah, about David and Samuel and the prophets, who through faith conquered kingdoms, administered justice, and gained what was promised, who shut the mouths of lions, quenched the fury of the flames, and escaped the edge of the sword, whose weakness was turned to strength, and who became powerful in battle and routed foreign armies. Women received back their dead, raised to life again. There were others who were tortured, refusing to be released so that they might gain an even better resurrection. Some faced jeers and flogging, and even chains and imprisonment. They were put to death by stoning. They were sawed in two. They were killed by the sword. They went about in sheepskins and goatskins, destitute, persecuted, and mistreated. The world was not worthy of them. They wandered in deserts and mountains, living in caves and in holes in the ground. These were all commended for their faith, yet none of them received what had been promised, since God had planned something better for us, so that only together with us would they be made perfect. The Bible has all kinds of stories of incredible faith. From Esther, who, we were talking about her this morning. What kind of faith did she have to go to the king knowing that he would probably kill her? Because you couldn't go to the king unless you were summoned. And so she had the faith to go to the king and to plead for her people. And she saved the entire nation. What kind of faith did Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego have when they were thrown in that fiery furnace, that God would protect them and keep them because they obeyed his laws and they did what they were supposed to do in God's sight? Jonah. Time and time again, there are examples of God's people choosing to have faith rather than letting their fear control them. All throughout Scripture, there's story after story after story. They talked a little bit in Hebrews 11 about Daniel and the lion's den, David and Goliath. You have stories of all of these people that, by all rights, if they didn't have faith in God, they would have been quivering and afraid to do whatever it was. They would have bowed down to the other gods because that's what the king commanded them. But they didn't. They stayed strong in their faith. They worshiped God, even though they knew it was going to get them killed. But they worshiped him because that's what we are called to do. We are called to stand in that faith and to worship Christ alone. And not whatever other idols we might have, whether it be our phones, our jobs, whatever. But we are to step out in faith and to worship Christ and Christ alone. So in closing, and I told y'all I was going to get y'all done early, is your faith bigger than your fear? Or are you willing to step out on faith and to do whatever it is that God is calling you to do? Because God is calling all of us to do something. Whether it be to stand up here and speak, even though you're terrified, or whether it be to teach a class, or to go talk to that person down the road that needs Jesus because of the way they act. What is God calling you to do? And are you willing to step out in faith to overcome that fear, step outside of your box and your bubble, and to focus on your faith and let that faith be bigger than the fear that keeps you from doing what God has called you to do? So have a time of invitation. If anybody needs to come up and pray, then feel free. All right, sweet husband of mine, will you close us in prayer?
Father, as we come to you tonight, we want to lift this message up that we can feed our spirit with it. Yes, the first thing that came to my heart with the Spirit, I believe, is the fact that you're in control.
Yes.
What am I anxious today about? I can serve you in this moment today. And I will serve you in the moment tomorrow.
Yes, Lord.
You're ultimately the victor. We shouldn't concern ourselves with the times today.
Yes,
and
Lord.
the worry of what is coming in the future.
Yes.
I have faith, Lord,
yes,
that
Lord.
you're going to bring us through it all. Your will for us is going to be perfect and walked out, and that we just live today and we enjoy our time today. And we'll let tomorrow worry about itself. Father, thank you so much for the message tonight and the times that Tina came to stand up there for the first time and just to put it out there, Father. Thank you for that, and thank you for the message. And may we use it to fulfill our life and your will for our life. I pray. Amen.
Hallelujah.